welcome back to Make Play Treasure. Today we're reading Children of the Frontier, and it is long by Sylvia Whitman, but it's interesting. On your mark, get set, go! Land was cheap in the 1800s. The government was even giving it away in some places. Americans hurried to claim a share. Families left home in the East. Children said goodbye to friends and relatives. These pioneers brought only what they could fit in a wagon. They settled on the frontier. The frontier was the rough edge of a growing country. To keep the free land, settlers had to live on it. First, they needed shelter. In woody areas, they chopped down trees with axes. Children helped grown-ups build cabins in clearings. Very few trees grew on the prairies of the Midwest. Pioneers crossed acres of long grasses that swayed in the breeze. Every summer, new roots tangled with dead roots underground. This made sod. Sod was thick, matted soil that didn't crumble. Settlers cut sod into blocks like huge bricks and stacked them together. A sod house, or soddy, weighed several tons. A soddy was cool in summer, warm in winter, and fireproof. But creepy mice, worms, spiders, and big brown bull snakes dropped down from the dirt ceiling. That would freak me out. Sometimes families moved into a hole in a hill. They covered it with boards or sod. Settlers called these cave houses dugouts. Most cabins and dugouts had dirt floors. Above the roof always leaked. Everybody slept and ate in one room. At one end, a fire burned day and night, summer and winter. The fireplace served as a heater and a cook stove. Sunlight entered through an open door or a hole cut in the wall. Few cabins had real windows. Most people didn't dare bring glass on the bumpy wagon ride west. Pioneer mothers tried to make homes cozy. They put up family photographs. They unpacked their treasures, a clock, a mirror, or maybe a bird cage. One lovely thing could brighten up a whole room. Women and girls did most of the housework. After they swept the floor, they sometimes drew a design with a stick. It made the earth look like a rug. A mother might write "Happy Birthday" in the dirt. Settlers found decorations in nature. Hunters hung bear skins and deer antlers on the walls. Children picked wildflowers. One girl counted 117 kinds of plants around her house. Parents depended on the children to help the family survive. Even young children fed chicken, herded sheep, and milked cows. One woman who grew up on the frontier remembers everybody worked. It was a part of life, for there was no life without it. Families knew they had to work hard to succeed. If they failed, they would have to turn around and head back east, unless they starved to death first. Pioneers relied on animals for food, clothes, and transportation. Pigs became bacon. Sheep gave wool. Horses pulled wagons and plows. Most settlers had little money. If they needed cash to buy something, they sold eggs or maybe a cow. Animals were so valuable that in bad weather, a family might bring them into the house. One farmer woke up after a storm without any pants. His calf had eaten them. People and animals needed water as much as food. Sometimes a stream ran through the land. If not, a girl or boy might drive a wagon to a spring and fill a barrel with water. Most families tried to dig wells. Then they pumped the water trapped underground. As soon as children could lift a bucket, they were carrying water into the house. Another daily job was collecting fuel for the fire. Children picked up twigs or stripped bark from trees. On the prairie, they gathered bones or animal droppings. They brought buffalo and cow manure home in wheelbarrows or sacks. Sometimes children carried the hard, dry chips on their heads. Buffalo chips didn't smell that bad. Burning, they were no worse than bones. Chores never ended. In the garden, children pulled weeds and scared away crows. In the fields, they cut tall stalks of wheat and rye. In the woods, they shot rabbits and turkeys. They fished in creeks and gathered walnuts under trees. At home, children sifted cornmeal and baked biscuits. They made candles by pouring boiling animal fat into molds. Frontier families worked and worked. Sometimes they didn't see their neighbors for weeks. A 15-year-old girl in Texas wrote, "It is so miserably lonesome here. I feel buried alive." Jobs went faster thanks to brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters always found ways to have fun. Children carved whistles out of willow branches and made dolls out of corn husks. They turned boxes into wagons. At night, they played 7-Up, dominoes, and checkers. When things were right, families celebrated. Everybody took a break to taste a good melon. Sometimes everything went wrong. Too much or too little rain could ruin crops. Grasshoppers and locusts sometimes ate the corn down to the ground. These bugs also chewed ropes, harnesses, and mattresses. They fell into wells and spoiled the water. One girl said the locusts sounded like a train of cars on a railroad. Pioneers faced danger everywhere. Lightning struck during summer storms. Wildfires burned up the prairies. Poisonous snakes slithered through cracks in the walls. A man in Kansas killed 133 rattlesnakes on his farm one year. The worst killer was disease. In one family, 6 children died in a single month. When a child came down with a fever, parents worried and prayed. Sometimes an older brother or sister rode to fetch a doctor. Neighbors shared sorrows and joys. Settlers met to roll logs, butcher pigs, and sew quilts. While their hands worked, they talked or sang songs. Women and children spent several days a year gathering wild berries. They picked and ate until their hands and lips turned purple. Sometimes they camped in the woods. They brought sugar and jars to can the berries for winter. Back home, they baked pies and made wine. The first years on the frontier were the hardest and loneliest for families, but more people kept moving west. Parents joined together to build schools. Schools looked like the houses in the area, cabins, soddies, or dugouts. Usually, the children all studied in one room. Children often learned to read at home, usually from the Bible. They practiced at school. They also studied math, spelling, history, and geography. Sometimes the teachers split students into small groups. It was hard to teach 5-year-olds and 15-year-olds at the same time. Older children helped younger ones. Schools followed the farm calendar. They closed when parents needed children in the fields. Students walked several miles to school. Because of snowstorms, sickness, or chores, they often missed days. Even at school, children couldn't escape work. They had to fetch water and chop wood for the stove. Most frontier children liked school. It gave them a chance to make friends. At recess, students played Ring Around the Rosie and Pop the Whip. Ante-I-Over was a popular game. One team threw a ball over a wall or a wagon and yelled "Ante." If the other team caught the ball, they ran around and tried to tag the throwers. On Sundays, children enjoyed seeing friends and neighbors at church. Often the service was long. Everyone looked forward to dinner and visits afterwards. Many frontier families rested on Sunday afternoons. They did only a few chores. Settlers read newspapers and magazines. They wrote letters to people back east. Then they didn't feel so lonely and far away. Children loved going to town. They listened to men gossip as the blacksmith pounded out horseshoes. They watched ladies try to keep their long skirts out of the mud. Sometimes their parents bought them lemon drops or rock candy at the general store. Pioneers built towns with animals in mind. Main Street was wide so farmers could make U-turns with horse-drawn wagons. At least one stable in town sold hay. Riders tied horses to hitching posts outside stores. Storekeepers made high wooden sidewalks so families could load their wagons easily. By 1900, Americans had reached the end of the frontier. They had settled the West all the way to the Pacific Ocean. There were still wild places, but they were harder to find. Frontier families believed they had helped make the United States a great country. They felt proud. Settlers held parades on the 4th of July. Towns threw parties on their birthdays. Pioneers wanted everyone to remember their struggle. Settlers continued to work hard, but they also had more time to relax. Everybody enjoyed picnics. On weekends, town and farm families rode into the country. When they found a quiet spot, they spread a blanket and ate lunch. Parents also took children camping. How things had changed. Once settlers had missed the safety of the East, now they missed the challenge of the frontier. Sleeping in tents and cooking over fires, Americans felt like pioneers again. The end. Hope you enjoyed this book, and remember to like and subscribe so you can keep up with our reading events and activities. Catch you next time on Make Play Treasure. Bye!